I'd like to welcome everyone to our regular scheduled meeting of May 19th, 2020, 9 a.m. This morning, to do our invocation and our pledge, I've asked Commissioner Richardson if everyone would please stand.
Let's pray. Our Father in heaven, we thank you for this opportunity to come and meet again together as a county, Lord, to be able to make decisions that affect the residents of our county and our community. We pray, Lord, that the decisions that are made here are made wisely, Lord, that you'd give us insight that's necessary in order to know the decisions that we make are the best decisions. We ask your blessings on our first responders, those who are struggling even with this virus, to treat our nurses and our medical staff, those folks that are affected with the virus, Lord, and all of the, even the indirect effects in our community with businesses and such like that. We ask for your strength and your guidance. We pray, God, for your protection. And Lord, we just love you for what you do. And we pray all these things in Christ's name for his sake. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Once again, I'd just like to welcome everyone this morning. Our first item of business is approval of minutes from our May 12th, 2020 meeting. Do I have any questions, comments, or do I have a motion to approve?
Motion approved. Second.
Got a motion by Commissioner Fleming, second by Commissioner Gamble.
Yes, sir.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Moving ahead to our consent agenda, I have items 2 through 8. Have any questions or comments, or do I have a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Richardson.
Second. Second.
Second by Commissioner Gamble. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We got a time-specific item here in just a couple of minutes, but before that, I'm going to have ask Mr. Greg Scott to come forward, go over a couple of things with park and rec real quick, and then we'll get into that. Welcome, Mr. Scott.
Good morning. Always good to be here.
Yes, sir. We had spoke yesterday for a few minutes, and I just wanted to get an update on our springs and how things are looking and what we're doing.
Right. Appreciate that. Last week, into the week, we got the county maintenance guys helped us finish up some repairs on some of the walkways, both at Little River and Royal Springs. Got that done. The water levels are where we usually open the springs after the flooding recedes. Springs are clear, so we went ahead and opened those up, did what I call a soft opening. We didn't publicize it, we just left the gate unlocked the next morning. As y'all are aware, we lock them at night, every night, open back up every day. So some of the photos I saw, it was not overly crowded the weekend. I'm sure it'll get busier, but we did want to have it available for Memorial Day weekend. That would be a big time for our local folks. Calls we're getting a lot of calls from people about the springs, probably more than anything else. The biggest thing is we're not publicizing it really to folks out of town. We want to make sure our local people are taken care of first. We had a rec board meeting last Wednesday. It was very clear the commissioner of the rec board said if you can get them open, open them up in a safe manner. So we've done that. Regarding the pool, we've done some training for our lifeguards for kind of moving forward. We plan on getting our summer programs at a limited capacity open back up the 1st of June. The aquatics, for example, the pool is a natural sanitizer. We plan on not using the locker rooms just for restroom purposes only, so we don't have people congregating there. We're looking at procedures to make sure we're scanning people before they come in the building, different processes we've got there. Again, the rec board approved us to move forward on that. Regarding day camp, the school has offered the use of the middle school to utilize that facility. We've got new staffing on board as a school teacher, and we're going through those processes, looking at there's a very clear model from the CDC on how to proceed and make sure you're doing things properly. We're following those guidelines. We're very close to having it finalized, but we plan on opening the 1st of June for that also. We have enough space there. We can keep apart. Field trips that we usually do probably won't happen. If they do, it'll be very different. Again, safety, monitoring the kids coming in, being careful how we're taking payments, all those things. Again, the rec board, we talked about this last Wednesday also. They want us to move forward also, again, in a safe way, making sure we're having a contingency plan if something were to happen, where we can shut down, if we need to. Those things are moving forward. We've had adult softball league, or not a league, it's a group that comes in a couple times a month, and they're chomping at the bit to come in and do softball tournaments. We are not ready for them yet to come in. We want to take care of our local needs first. We can worry about, the outside folks later, but we're just not, I don't feel comfortable enough with people coming in from other places and not being, I just don't see them being distant like we need them to be. And again, we're monitoring it, we're looking at it. There's a lot of guidelines coming out from different organizations nationally of how to handle those things. But we're developing tentative plans of what we would look like when we get there. We're just not there yet. We have a food distribution program on June 4th. Sherman and Sherwood Riley is organizing that. 2 fine young men that raised here, went away, done well, and giving back to the community. It's through the Gary Edwards Leadership Day. So the idea that this time we're working with the Sheriff's Office, Police Department to do it backwards. We did the last one. So we got the stacking room in the back so we can bring them in and keep them off the roads. That we got a meeting set up next week with CERT, Emergency Management, Sheriff, Police Department, all the players to look at logistics, make sure everything moves smoothly. Again, same format. Distance from people will stay in their cars, they'll pass through, drop in their truck, and they keep on rolling. So we'll have the volunteers all wearing masks also, so that just like we did before.
Excuse me, what was that date again?
June 4th. We will also, just a note, last time we did it, we ran out of food. We will count how many cars we can handle, and we'll count cars ahead of time and shut them off so they're not sitting there for an extra hour and get turned away. So, I feel confident that that's going to be very smooth. The Voters League has requested to use the Coliseum to do their event that they do for the candidates, bring candidates in. Because there's so many candidates, they want to do 2 days. They have been doing it at the City Hall. They've asked to use the Coliseum because of the spacing. They're looking at about 60 people, 60 to 80 people. I feel confident we can rearrange the chairs here and make that work without people all huddled up. But that'll be June 15th and 16th. And we did have one question, I'd like to get a little feedback. I know that one of the commission meetings y'all talked about the rental of facilities. The arena, we're getting close to getting that ready to, again, if you haven't gone by and looked at that, this looks pretty impressive. We have a youth rodeo that they want to come in the middle of June, and we've got them tentative now, but the idea is that will not be spectators, you'll just be participants. So I wanted to kind of get y'all's, if y'all had any heartburn with that, to have that, but there's an adult rodeo that wants to come in 2 weeks after that. So just get y'all's feedback. Any concerns on the youth first?
Any questions or concerns for Mr. Scott?
In talking to people, I feel comfortable with what their game plan is in spreading people out. So
Just from the discussions we had at the rec board meeting the other day, the rec board was fine with it. It just wanted direction from the board. I was fine with it at the rec board meeting.
The only question would be what you just said, they have a plan to
Right.
to be safe and
Right.
try to follow the guidelines.
right.
I don't have a problem with it.
Okay. That's all I've got.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
I didn't hear you mention anything about the youth football that fall.
Right. We will start registering for that the end of July. We are moving forward on a plan. Again, we're monitoring national guidelines on that. We are planning to have it, but it's a little bit far out to have anything firm.
I just wanted to mention that.
Right.
I didn't hear you mention it.
Right. I threw out the idea at the rec board the other day when we were talking about us if we could maybe do flag. But we need to get as normal as we can safely. So we're looking through all the different scenarios, looking at what works, what doesn't work, and what the recommendations are in the bigger picture. So.
We figured the only ones that wouldn't have a problem with flag football was FSU.
Always that one joke.
Always a comedian in the crowd.
Always, yeah, absolutely. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Scott, I knew you was talking about the pool and your lifeguard and all, and of course, I know you don't know what the count would be of participants, but are you guys looking to maybe extend those hours as to allow?
We're looking at doing a 50% capacity on lessons and public swim, and then do a family swim, same as usual, but we might push the lessons back a little bit further into the season.
Okay.
Historically, what we find is our numbers are heavier in the early season. Toward the end of the season, it gets lighter. As it gets hotter and people don't want to walk, or it's just too hot to swim.
Sure.
So,
And
but,
the daycares have special times to come where they have to schedule ahead.
right.
And give them out their bringing.
And that was my question, just, you don't know how many he's gonna schedule, but if you needed to extend those hours and push further into the season, that was
Right.
my question.
Right. And again, we are looking at numbers.
Right.
50% capacity so that we can, make sure we've got some spacing. Even our lessons, I mean, usually you got 5 kids sitting there. We're going to spread those out, developing the game plan now exactly, but spread the kids out. And I told them just dunk them in the water to get sanitized before they sit them back on the side. So, but we shouldn't be doing that. Any other questions?
Thank you so much, Mr. Scott.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
At this time, we're going to move into our time specific. At 9:05 a.m. or as soon thereafter, as the matter can be heard, we are holding a public hearing to consider adoption of a resolution approving special permit for temporary use request number SPTU-20-03-01 by American Promotional Events, doing business as TNT Fireworks, to be granted a special permit for temporary use under section 14.10 of the Suwannee County Land Development Regulations for a firework tent sale to be held starting June 19th, 2020 through July 5th, 2020 on the property zone commercial intensive. At this time, if anyone wishes to be heard on this matter, we'll have our county attorney swear you in.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. If staff or anybody in the audience, if you anticipate that you may say something up here, would you stand to be sworn? All right, staff, did you swear or affirm the testimony you give before the board this morning will be the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
At this time, I'll turn it over to Mr. Ron Meeks, Planning and Zoning.
Mr. Chairman, board members, most of you by now are familiar with TNT Fireworks. It's American promotional events, but every July, every January, they've been holding the fireworks tent sale for the past several years. They are the same company, and they'll be looking to put their tent up at the same location on the Walmart property in the parking lot there. Their event is scheduled to start in June 19th and ending July the 5th. A lot of that is not necessarily sales. A lot of that is set up and tear down, but that is the period that they would be on site. They do require permitting through our fire marshal's office, and Tim White does go out and do an inspection prior to them opening, so they got to make sure they have all the fire extinguishers and everything addressed they're required to have. But this is just the approval to get for their 4th of July or for the 4th of July holiday. So we've included a resolution for approval in your packet. If you so choose to adopt that, then that's what we would be looking for today. And at this time, I'll enter the file into the record.
Thank you, Mr. Meeks. I'll accept the file as composite exhibit number 1.
Do I have any questions from the board for Mr. Meeks? Hearing none, at this time I'll open the floor to public comment. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak on this matter? Seeing none, I will close public comment. Do I have any further board discussion on this, or do I have a motion to adopt this resolution?
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Gamble, second by Commissioner Richardson. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. The results, 5-0 vote. At this time, we'll close public hearing on this matter. Moving right along to time-specific, item number 10 on the agenda. At 9:05 a.m. or as soon thereafter as the matter can be heard, we will hold a public hearing to consider adoption of a resolution approving special permit number SP-20-05-01 by James Johnson with Schutz and Bowen LLP, authorized agent for Florida Sheriff's Youth Ranches Incorporated, to be granted a special permit under section 14.11 of the Suwannee County Land Development Regulations for an essential service, which is a 250-foot self-support communications tower and associated equipment on the property zoned A1. At this time, do I have anyone wishing to speak? We'll ask you to get sworn in by our county attorney, and this is just on this matter that we're discussing at this moment.
Anybody here? Okay. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you give before the board this morning will be the true self you got? Thank you. When you approach up here, please identify yourself and state your address. Thank you.
At this time, I'll turn it over to Mr. Meeks.
Mr. Chairman and board members, as previously stated, section 14.11 does address essential services that can be approved by the Board of County Commissioners by special permit. One of those essential services that is mentioned is telecommunication towers. So this request has been made to construct a 250-foot self-support tower. It's on a 100 by 100 lease area on property that's owned by the Florida Sheriff Youth Ranches. The supporting documentation with the application includes the necessary information which the individual would need to show their need for the construction of towers in specific areas. The attached maps has vicinity maps which shows the coverages that can be provided currently. The area specifically identified as the Youth Ranch property, but it is also considered in the Fort Union area. So the colored map that you have in your packets, which shows some red and green coverage areas, you'll notate where the coverage is not reliable on the printout, as well as the additional map that shows with the construction of the tower, it would increase the coverage in that area. This would be a 250-foot self-support tower. The applicant that is requesting the construction of the tower, the main or first tenant would be Verizon Wireless. However, the tower is built for co-location, which would accommodate additional users should they want to locate their equipment and antenna on the tower. The location of this site is at the northwest intersection of County Road 132 and County Road 795. The site specifically is, I believe it's 153 acres, and the location for the 100 by 100 lease area is at the northwest corner of that property. We have included a resolution, for approval with the packet. If you so choose to adopt that, the board would need to adopt that resolution. Mr. James Johnson is present to answer any questions that the board may have in regard to the construction of the tower or anything that I may have not covered. If you don't have any questions of me at this time, I would enter the file into the record.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Meeks. I'll accept the file in its composite exhibit number 1.
Do I have any questions for Mr. Meeks?
I do, Mr. Chairman, just one. I'm looking through here real quick. I know you said that they could put other services on there. I know we've asked in the past to be able to access those towers. Is that included as well?
It's not included in the addition. I just made a comment to Mr. Harris about that, but it's typically a condition that we would put on as the condition number 1.
Okay.
There'd be a spot for co-location for public services available.
Yeah, I didn't see that. That's why I was asking. Thank you.
I think at this time we'd bring Mr. Johnson up. Maybe he could agree or disagree with that. Welcome, sir. Name and
Hi, good
address.
morning.
Name and address for the record, please.
Sure. James Johnston with Schutz & Bowen, 300 South Orange Avenue in Orlando on behalf of the applicant. To answer your question, as indicated, the tower is designed to allow co-location of other antennas on it, so there is room for it. And Verizon is always open to working with the local jurisdictions if they have a need to put the antennas on the tower.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr.
Any other
Chairman, what's the height of that, that we typically put in there for that co-location of our services when we do this? And it's a 250-foot tower, obviously, we would be at the top, I don't think, would we?
I think we hit, what was it, 100 foot?
So,
Yeah, it was at a lower level that we
130 or
typically
something.
not utilized.
It's like 130 or something.
There you go.
does that have to be designated in the condition, or would it be?
Yes.
Yeah, and past meetings, we've always put it as a condition.
I'm just talking about the height. Would that have to be, the height have to be designated? That's what I'm asking, so.
I mean, I think, excuse me, as far as this tower, I mean, Verizon is the anchor tenant. The height of the tower is based on where, their antennas are going at the top, because that's where they need to be to provide the coverage and capacity to the area. So, I think co-location opportunities are below that on the tower.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah.
At this time, I'll open the floor to public comment. Do I have anyone else in the audience wishing to speak on this?
And I do have some more questions. Comments?
I'm sorry, I didn't cut you off.
I have a question about the location. When you said the northwest corner, I'm a little unclear because there appears to be a house that's right across the property line from there.
You're asking my question, so
Oh,
yes.
sorry.
Yep, go right ahead. Go ahead. There is a home there.
Mr. Meeks, do you have any comment on this?
And as they're looking at that and discussing, I do want to share my opinion. I live next to a tower, and, whatever we do here today, I just encourage my board to understand that I don't want anyone affected by this that lives close to that, because I am affected by it every day. Not necessarily in a negative way, but there's AC units that they put on these things that run 24 hours a day that we don't take into consideration. There is noise there. There's no peaceful moment on the back porch. So I just want to make sure wherever they position this, as the attorney was asking, there's buffering,
Is there buffering?
plenty of setback. There is none where mine is, but I just want to make sure we discuss all this, because I don't want the community affected by it. Although I'm sure they want better service, because there is none out there, I promise you.
And I would note, Mr. Commissioner Hale, that if you look at the special permit analysis that's been submitted as part of the file, it has under screening and buffering, not applicable.
Need to work on that.
Well, I mean, if we're gonna work on it, we have to work on it right now.
I'm ready.
Well, this is when the
I'm
time you
ready.
can put conditions in.
I'm ready.
And look at the item number 6,
Yeah.
under the regular terms, impact on the proposed use, is number 5. Impact of proposed use upon living conditions in the neighborhood. This is where you can also correct it, or put a condition in.
And if I may address that, I mean,
Yes,
I
sure.
think that, and I don't know this for sure, but I think the property to the north of it and to the west of this particular parcel is also owned by the Florida Sheriff's Youth Ranch Incorporated. So I don't know if that encompasses the house here.
No, it's to the east of it. I know the north and south there, but.
I mean, because to the east, we're set back, almost 2,300 feet from the east property line of this parcel. And and we're set back 250 feet from the south. From the north property line, 250 feet from the west. Property to the west is also owned by Florida Sheriff's Youth Ranch. The property to the north is owned by Florida Sheriff's Youth Ranch. So the closest property to this tower is also owned by the parent parcel owner, Florida Sheriff's Youth Ranch. And so I don't know the exact distance to the closest home, but again, if it's off to the east, then it's at least, almost 2,300 feet in an agriculturally zoned property. And that's why we didn't, I don't think there's typically, when we were doing our analysis for this, a requirement for landscape buffering around the fence. Obviously the tower and the equipment will be in a fenced compound, and in some jurisdictions, depending on the zoning, you have to put landscaping within a buffer area around the fence compound. And I think that the reason that, one, it wasn't required by the code in A1 zoning, but also because it's an agricultural piece of property and it's set back 250 feet from the closest property lines, and that's why there wasn't landscaping proposed around the fenced compound.
Mr. Chairman, this parcel that's cut out here, it's completely clear, or will be, I'm sure, all the way to the road up to what we call Boys Ranch Road. The only thing I would ask is from the road there to the east of that property, just some type of buffering. I mean, I understand it's 250 foot tall, and we're gonna see it as we drive by, but I just don't want someone.
Sure. No, and I think we're fine with that, because again, that's fairly normal on other tower sites to have to do that. And we do have built in to our 100 by 100 foot lease area, our tower compounds in 80 foot by 80 feet. So we have 10 feet around, the outside of the fence compound. So, if you wanted to have a condition of providing landscaping outside the fence on the north side facing the road, I think, and to the east, I think your concern, I don't think that's problematic.
Okay. I just know as time goes on, from experience of the one next to me, it starts off with, one user, and then becomes many users, and then there's more piece of equipment that gets added that runs and works all night long, and, creates noise and things of that matter. So, and again, I understand it's set back, don't get me wrong, and
Right.
they own the land around it.
I agree with what you're asking. I mean, even if there's a house that's not within 200 feet of it, anytime you pass one of these sites, there's nothing beautiful to look at. I mean, you're looking at a chain link fence and usually a building at the bottom, and so anything we can do to make it more eye appealing to the traveling public.
And it's definitely a need, I understand.
Right.
I live out in that area, and there's very poor service out there.
No, I understood. I think we're fine with that
Mr. Chairman.
condition.
Yes, sir. For just clarification, Commissioner Hill used the term road, and from what I can see on this map, there are several roads, so I want to make sure that you clarify what roads you're talking about. I'm looking at the piece of property that's looks like in the wooded area north of 26th Place, that has looks like a long curve to the northeast of it. on the northeast side of it. Is that, and the building or structure in that southwest corner, that's the,
I believe that's the Boys Ranch.
that's part of the Boys Ranch? Okay. And this across, that's where the corner that you're utilizing, that you're putting the tower site right underneath it?
Yes.
To the south of it?
If you look at it, I think that should be in the back.
Yeah, if you,
I see the colored one, but
An upside down L, and we're going in the top northwest corner, setback again, 250 feet.
I don't have a problem with any buffers. I do understand the air conditioning systems and the mechanical systems that are running in a quiet, obviously, we're a very quiet neighborhood, county, because there's really just nothing going on out here. So anything that's running is sound, and it carries for a long way. So if anything that could help, not just the beautification part of it, but also the sound buffer, would be a benefit to us, and I'm good with it. If it's the Boys Ranch and they're willing to deal with it, then I do have a little bit of a conflict in those two things. If the Boys Ranch says we don't have a problem with it no matter what, and it's their property, then I don't have a problem with it. But it's your district, so.
No, and I'm with you on that. I think it's just the property and the people to the east of there. Pretty much everything else there, I believe, is all Boys Ranch property.
And I say to the east, that's across the field, all the way across 795, is that what you're talking about?
Mm-hmm.
So how many feet would it be from that property to the tower site?
It's
20?
It's like 2,300 feet.
Yeah, not enough. I live next to one, I'm telling you.
Okay. That's almost that's over a half a mile.
So moving forward, we have any more questions or concerns about this other than the buffering, if we add that in? Or
If they'll do that, I'll be fine. Like I said, it's like you say, beautification, just being a good neighbor, that's all it is. And again, I know it's needed out there, I know the community will welcome this, but that's all.
Mr. Chairman, a couple of questions.
Mr. Pavat?
Thank you. On the 250 feet, is it a collapsible?
It is. That is that is the height of the tower, so even if it were to fall flat, it's falling within the parent parcel. But they are designed with, with break points in the event, unlikely event of any failure. They have hinge points, so they, fall. And in fact, they can design them, where they can fall in the 100 by 100 foot area. That's the way they're engineered, but certainly with the setbacks, it's all on the parent parcel.
Okay, Mr. Meeks, that on the fall zone, even though we're still defined as that, the 250 feet will fall to the edge of the fall zone, and we're next to a road, a public road. Actually, that would be a private road, wouldn't it, a place, 26th place? Do we have we have a setback?
Your requirement in the LDRs is that the tower be set back the height of the tower from the property lines.
Okay,
So it meets that requirement.
okay.
And then the engineering does,
On the collapsible.
for the self-collapsing distance from anything else.
It
Okay.
would still meet it if it was 350 feet back though, wouldn't it?
What's that?
Yeah,
said it would still meet it if it was
that's my point.
350
In case
feet
it
back.
doesn't, I don't want it to cross a. Can we do it? My
If it were
question.
moved farther to the south, it would still comply with the 250-foot minimum that would be the height of the tower. If it were moved 350 feet to the
Yes,
south.
it would still,
It would
the
still comply.
minimum would be 250 feet. It meets that requirement. If you move it anywhere else, it would still meet the requirement.
Okay, thank you. What I'm getting at is, you see what I'm getting at, even though it's the fall and with the collapsible to not be on the highway, we have an opportunity to set an additional condition or setback. That's the minimum requirement, is the 250.
And if I could just address that, this again has been designed, and you also go through FCC permitting, so they're working on that. So any moving of the tower, like to move it to 350 feet back, one would impact that. We do think we're meeting the code, Two, we're in a lease area that has already been a negotiated lease area. So that would require, going back and would delay the implementation of building this tower. I mean, we think we meet the setback requirements. One, just the height of the tower, but two, the way they're designed to, that this will not impact, beyond the parent parcel property line, and to somehow, have to move it now would hamper and delay the ability to build this tower.
But it wouldn't be uncommon at all for that to occur. That's the good thing about negotiating these issues under special permit conditions is that you try to make the best end product for the public out there that's on the receiving end of these. Otherwise, negative impacts. When you if you put a 250-foot tower outside this building, it would affect the whole neighborhood. So the idea that you might delay a little while and going back and trying to negotiate some of these things really is not a long-term impact as much as the fact that a 250-foot tower is going to be out there.
Correct, but again, it's on property owned by the Florida Sheriff's Youth Ranch, who also owns the property to the north and to the west. I understand, but they have said, this is where they want the tower. This is where it works pursuant to the code. I mean, if you wanted under your code, any tower to be set back 350 feet from the property line, well, then it would say that in the code, not, that it needs to be set back.
Sir, I appreciate your comments, but not to be disrespectful, but I mean, if we have concerns about that tower falling, and this board has the right to do what they want to do, or do nothing.
No, absolutely. I'm just trying to explain the process that, it does impact to move it. It can be within that lease area, like the 100-foot lease area. Right now it's set in the middle of that. If there's some concern I think can be potentially moved around in there, but to take it outside of that lease area impacts obviously the lease, but then also, what FCC permitting has already been underway.
Chairman, I'd like one more question.
Yes.
Where's the access point for this? Is it going to be off 795 or 26th place?
Probably
So,
26.
Off 26.
26th place, okay, that's it, okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I
sir.
did hear you say that if that were to happen, which is unlikely, that it would have those collapsible, where the section would be 100 foot.
I don't know the exact size of the sections, the hinge points, but yes, again, they're typically engineered to be able to collapse on the lease area.
Mr. Chairman, just a question.
Yes, sir.
Is that 26th Place, isn't that an abandoned road on Boys Ranch property? The one I'm thinking of?
It is.
So it would not impact anybody but the Boys Ranch?
Just for Boys Ranch, yeah. I think that's the one
That old road?
that old road, yeah.
What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the resolution and this application with the conditions of...
Hold on just a second. When I said that, I meant moving forward about the comments on the 250 foot or more, but I need to close public comment, what I'm saying, before we do it.
Okay, that's what, when
so-
you asked, I just thought, wait a second, are we there already? The way I look at it is it's a closed road, it's a Boys Ranch road, and I'm gonna trust the engineering. And it meets all of our criteria. I don't see what the huge issue is. It's one thing if you had a property owner beside it that depended on a road, that had a property owner that was really concerned about all of these things, and they really came out, but this is a property owner that's saying, hey, this is our property, we want you to put it here, and we're good with everything. And so,
Give me just a second. At this time, I've previously opened the floor to public comment. Is there anyone else wishing to speak from the public on this matter? Seeing none, at this time, I'll close public comment. Now we can finish up. I'm sorry, Mr. Richardson. I kind of let that slip by, and I need to get back in line.
I know you're parliamentarian over here, probably looking at you going,
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Richardson, I agree with you. I mean, and just like Mr. Musgrove said, the only real impact on the backside is gonna be the boys' ranch. I just wanna make sure, as someone stated a while ago, as we ride by, they're not the most attractive things. I just want it to be like it's not even there, other than we use our cell phone and it works. So, that's all I'm asking for.
So I think as what I'm seeing here is, I feel like we're okay with the setback, and we feel like we need something in place as far as the buffering is what we'd like to see.
That's all.
So, I'm
Now, are you ready?
I'm ready for you, Mr. Richardson.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the application, the resolution, with the conditions that we have. The tower height that necessary, I guess that's 130 feet for public safety, for use of public safety if necessary. And also the buffering that we talked about as well for sound and beauty.
I have a motion by Commissioner Richardson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Fleming, followed closely by Commissioner Hale.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, go ahead, I got one comment.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, if I could we have Mr. Richardson's motion take out the exact
Height of the
height?
Okay, that's what I asked earlier. Was about
We'll work with it, but,
Okay.
that was just basically my recollection. I'm not exactly sure engineering-wise what footage it is.
So again, he answered my question. I was I didn't know about the elevation out there. Was 130 foot adequate, or
Okay.
what we need to do? So thank you.
I'll stipulate that change.
With that correction, I have a motion by Commissioner Richardson, a second by Commissioner Fleming. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. At this time, we'll close public hearing. Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you.
Moving ahead, this time I'd like to have an update this morning from Mr. Waldron.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, Commissioners.
Welcome, sir.
Quick update on our COVID-19 response here in Suwannee County. As of yesterday, we are up to 160 cases in Suwannee County. We do not have any pending cases today that we'll be announcing, so we're at 160. Of those, 156 are Florida residents and 4 are non-Florida residents. They happen to be visiting our community, were tested positive for the COVID, and based upon how the state likes to collect that data for non-residents, it will show as a non-Florida case here in Suwannee County. I am happy to report that we've completed 3 drive-through community-wide testing events here in Suwannee County. They've been here at the health department, and to date we have seen 524 people. And so far, knock on wood, fingers crossed, only 5 have been positive. We will have another event on this coming Friday in Branford at Branford Elementary School from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. so that we can provide drive-through testing in that facility down there in that part of the community as well. I'm hearing, I think we'll have a large turnout, a good crowd. We've talked to the town of Branford and others. I know that it's been on the sheriff's Facebook page and other media outlets, so hopefully we can access a large crowd there as well. I'll be happy to, one other thing, based upon our total numbers of 160 and the 14-day incubation period, we have approximately 145 individuals that have recovered. We're still working with the state to get exact numbers from them. They're still working on being able to accurately account for that. We are basing this recovery rate upon the 14-day incubation period. So right now, based upon our numbers, approximately 145 have recovered. I'll be glad to answer any questions y'all might have.
Any questions or comments?
Now, on that recovery, that 145, that's including the deaths as well, obviously, or we have 18 deaths.
We've got 18 deaths, yes.
So that's obviously more than 160. So I assume that.
Yeah, the deaths were in there, although the state's not going to allow us to account for the deaths. The deaths will not be a recovered number, but just basically looking at our data, 160, we've had, of that 160, we've had 18 deaths. So yes, the recovery number is going to be around the 140-ish. And they're still working on that formula through the CDC and the state on how they're going to account for the recovery. And we're still seeing folks that are asymptomatic, which means they have no symptoms, but are testing positive.
Well, that was my question for you. On the 5 that you tested positive through the drive-through, were they showing symptoms, or did y'all do the simple throat test on those, or were they through the brain?
They were symptomatic, and so we sent those to the state lab.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Waldron, I've gotten a lot of people concerned about the number of tests that are going to take place, testing days that are going to take place down in Branford compared to Live Oak. My question is can you plan, or do you expect to plan any additional testing days for Branford for those who cannot make it on this one day that you've got set aside?
We'll evaluate the type of crowds that we have on Friday to determine if we need to have additional testing or provide additional testing. I'm expecting a large turnout. I could be wrong, but I'm expecting we're preparing for around 200 people to come through. But we'll make that assessment based upon on Friday what we see.
Okay. And me and you talked by email yesterday, or the day before yesterday, a comment that was made. Mr. Chairman, I'm kind of concerned about the numbers and how they're tabulating the numbers. We got popped for having a resident who was visiting another state get tested in the other state. We got charged with his case, who's thankfully over the...
He's recovered, yes.
He's recovered. But then we also got charged for a Georgia resident who was visiting in Suwannee County. I believe that's some of the family that was
Correct.
also our non-residents. It just seems to me that somewhere in this situation, we're getting charged for residents and non-residents alike. That these are polar opposites. If I don't know if Texas includes that number in their numbers, but even if they do, now we're double reporting some cases.
That's been some of the concern, but to my knowledge, Texas does not include this case in their numbers. That's why they shipped it back to us, and we did not get the data until this past week on that, although this occurred back in April. But the state wants to capture non-residents. They want to know how many folks are in the state of Florida that are either visiting, traveling, that are not Florida residents. They're wanting to capture that data, so that's why we are listed. If we have someone that's visiting and they test in our community and are positive, it will be counted as a non-Florida resident.
Now, are these Georgia folks back in Georgia?
No, they're not.
So they're still in I guess Georgia don't want them yet? Is that what it is? Is that how it basically looks like?
I'm not sure. Can't answer that.
I'm just calling into question some of the tabulation of the numbers. You talked about the death and the way they deal with the deaths, that it doesn't necessarily have to be directly related to the COVID. Just because they tested positive, it's going to be a COVID death.
Correct.
And to me, I'm sorry, I've come to the point where I can't trust politicians in Washington, what they say. Sometimes the state, I'm questioning some of those, and now I got to question the medical community. So I just think that the community, when you add in the fact that the community, by and large, is starting to get over this thing, and I don't mean physically over it, I mean emotionally and mentally over this thing. And now we have questions as to how the numbers are being tabulated, whether these numbers are realistic or are they...
Well, they're very accurate numbers. I mean, these are folks that are in our community that we test, that have tested positive, so that we count and keep track of, and we do contact tracing. But I will say that if you are up in Suwannee County, but you live elsewhere in the state of Florida, we can transfer that case to their home county, and it will count in their county.
When will we be able to transfer those cases back to Georgia?
But we've already contacted Georgia.
I mean, I understand your conflict, and I understand this is a learning process for everybody, but if we have a resident from another state or from another county that's here visiting and they stay here through the whole summer and they have the virus, I mean, people in our county need to know that we got that case here. They're not going back home.
I understand
I mean,
that.
if they're staying here for 6 months,
Well,
then
I understand that. You're saying there's inconsistency on how these numbers are tabulated. One state were counted because he's a resident here, but he's in another state.
Yeah, but for communicable disease purposes, we need to know that because we need to track these individuals that are in our county, and they're here for whether it's a week, 2 days, or 2 months. We need, as public health officials, need to be aware that they're here, what type of disease that they have, so that we can trace them and do our contact tracing to make sure that they are maintaining their social distancing or staying home or quarantining and so forth. So I mean, that's an obligation. It's good for us to know because I would not want someone coming from out of state that is sick and we not know about it. And then they're out in the community and then we potentially have community spread.
And this is the purpose of this line of my statements, is that you somehow reassure the community that what we're doing and how I mean, when you've got medical staff saying there's more money for hospitals with COVID patients for Medicare, and it's all a money thing. I need our top health expert in our county to be able to sit down and say, listen, what the state is doing and the federal government is doing and everything, the tracking, all of this that's going on is being done for the best interests of the county and not for political reasons or monetary reasons or anything that's coming from our community and some of the concerns that are coming from our community.
This is out of an abundance of caution to protect the public at large.
Yeah, well, I can see the benefit for the state of Florida wanting to track out-of-state cases. I mean, as much tourism as we have coming in, they want that number readily available to know if it's an influx of local cases or it's an influx of out-of-state cases and on what they need to do as far as allowing interstate travel. So I can see that number being useful.
I understand, and I mean, your concerns is duly noted, Commissioner Richardson.
I mean, it's without explanation, it's an illogical inconsistency in the way they track these two different groups or people. It was just completely illogical. So I needed an explanation of why we need to see these numbers go up here in our county when, in fact, that I mean, it seems to me that the one in Texas, if he's tested negative now and he's over it, that you would think that if he's back in Suwannee County, that he's not even a positive case.
And this individual is not a positive case, but because he had COVID at one time and was a resident or is a resident of Suwannee County, it gets counted towards our number of cases.
Thank you so much for your comments this morning. Any other questions?
And just one more question, back to the 5 people that tested positive to your drive-through. Were they connected to any other existing cases or were they just at random cases?
They were all connected.
Okay.
They were part of this family.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead. Mr. Harris?
I have a question, 2 questions actually. And since you just talked about the drive-through, how many of the results are not back yet on the drive-through of those numbers who have been tested?
Out of the 524, there's approximately 70% that have come back. There's been a lag in the lab getting that information out. One of the issues that we are running into is you can give your cell phone number and the lab can send you a link and you can call in to that link or go online to that link and get your results back before we even at the health department know the results are back. So we've been dealing with the Quest lab and trying to get information and getting all the results so that we can track that. So that's been a little difficulty in getting the results out in a more timely fashion.
The other question I had actually has to do with residents of Suwannee Health that were moved out over to Columbia County. Is anyone tracking those residents now that they're not in Suwannee County any longer? Do we know if any of those residents have now been tested with the virus since they've been relocated?
Yes, the Columbia County Health Department, because that facility that they're at, the Rehab Center of Lake City, it's in Columbia. Columbia County Health Department has done mass testing on that facility, and they've had several positives come out of that facility because of an employee that tested positive. So to my knowledge and in talking with the nursing home, none of those residents have been placed back in Suwannee Health Care. They're still over in Columbia County.
My question actually had more to do with trying to determine if residents who had been here, who moved over there, then tested positive later, specific residents that have been relocated.
They have had some that were negative here, that did go to Columbia County, to that facility, that did test positive.
Okay. That was my question. Thank you.
One quick question. What about the other, did we ever get the results with the other facilities? All of the facilities are, I think there was one facility outstanding last week when you...
Yes, we have all results back in. I think there's one facility that several employees are pending their results, but all of our nursing home and long-term care facilities have come back in. And we've seen, as I mentioned to you previously, out at Dacia Manor, they had a couple of positives that were in staff and one in a resident who has recovered. The other facilities have been negative.
Thank you so much, Mr.
Mr.
Richardson.
Chairman, yes, sir. I don't know whether this question should be asked. You probably don't want to answer it, but
Lay it out there for us.
I've been watching the news, and I saw TV 20 this morning about some cases in small as Suwannee County is tied to the Suwannee Healthcare Facility. There was some lawsuits, I think, it's coming to play now. I don't know whether you want to talk about it, answer that, share that with the board, with the community. I don't know whether that's feasible.
I know as much as you do what I've heard on the news.
Okay.
So we've seen no inquiries. All I know is what I've heard on Channel 6 News as well.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Just real quick, Mr. Waldron, if you will, just for public knowledge, for the testing, what type of documentation does someone need to bring with them? I know you're gonna start this up in Branford. That was some of the questions that were asked, and you know, you give me the answer, but just for public
Yeah,
knowledge.
just need to bring your driver's license. You have to have no symptoms, no signs, no doctor orders or anything. We are asking, if you would, please do not consume any liquid or food 2 hours prior to coming for the testing. We want to make sure that we can get a valid sample.
And one last thing, and I'm just, again, I'm doing this for public knowledge. Multiple people in a car can be tested, or just one per car?
No, sir, we tested a carload of 7 the other day.
Okay.
So we prefer that you practice social distancing. If you are not sick and you do not plan to be tested, please don't come. We've had several carloads of 5, a carload of 7, and we've tested as small as less than a year old. So, you know, if you feel like you need to be tested, we want to be tested, we encourage you to come.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate
Thank
your
you.
time. Yes, sir. This time, I'll ask Ms. Hinkson to come forward and give us a emergency operations. I'd like to welcome you this morning.
Good morning, thank you. Our COVID response has actually slowed down, but our planning and preparedness for hurricane season and COVID is ramped up. Our PPE that we had been receiving has slowed down tremendously, and that's due to the fact that a lot of the ALFs and nursing homes and facilities can now go back to their normal procedures and can order it themselves. We're continuing to work on the sheltering plan. As of now, we have thermometers that we have ordered. They will be put into our shelter kits, so temperatures will be taken upon entry into the facility should we have to open up a shelter. And we'll also be taking temperature checks at the EOC during activations. That way we know, or we feel more confident that that person is okay before entrance. We're going to have shelter training beginning tonight for some of our old and our new CERT members. I'm glad to say we've got some new CERT members joining us. We're going to have to even that out to about 3 classes so we don't have more than the 10 in the EOC at one time, so we can still do the social distancing. And I am excited to say that we have a grant that we have just been told about will be coming in the next week or so. It's a supplemental grant that will be used for COVID purposes for training, equipment, planning. It was a $7,000 grant, and I'm going to put a plug in for Mr. Norris and the census. The remaining dollar amount was due to our population. So that's why the census is very important, you know, for the additional monies that come with some of our grants.
Yes, ma'am.
So that's pretty much all I have.
Any questions or comments, Ms. Hinkson?
I've got one question.
Yes, sir.
I know in the past, when we've had severe storms come through, the trouble that we've had with sheltering as far as people with illnesses needing certain services when they're there, people with pets. Has the state issued a plan on what do you do when you have a shelter and you have symptomatic people coming, or people that you know are positive to a shelter?
There are recommendations, and we're having conference calls. As a matter of fact, I was on one Friday. And what our plan is at this time is if somebody does have a fever or they're showing signs of COVID, we've discussed this with the school, there'll be a separate location that that person will have to go to. And if they come with family, all of their family will also go with them into that isolation room. And that's where they will remain.
So isolated within the same
Yes.
shelter, like going to a different classroom?
Yes.
Any other questions? Thank you, Ms. Hinkson.
All right, thank you.
Have a great day.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I just have to ask, I mean, that's a great question, and I appreciate that, but I mean, what do you need from us or from Mr. Han or anyone if this takes, you know, if this falls into place and we have people evacuating and coming here? I think it's great to separate them, but is there any additional steps we need to take or I'm sure you guys are planning for them, just asking.
Yes, sir. We do have a shelter plan should it be needed.
Right.
It's something that I'm working with Mr. Harris on and with the state, and it's been approved by FEMA. So we do have a backup to everything.
Great.
Yes.
Great. Just want to protect everyone.
Oh,
you
yes.
guys and
Yes.
the community and of course the people.
And we will have surgical masks and hand sanitizer. All of that will be provided at the shelters.
And that's kind of where I'm going with it, because you said your PPEs had slowed down, but in
Yes.
a case of something like that, your CERT team, like say, people that would be out there taking care of them,
So
would need all that.
Yeah, we have been provided some cloth masks. We were able to give some to the clerk of court. If there are, speaking of that, if there are other departments that need some cloth masks, we can provide those. But we do have those. We do have some surgical masks that we have put back and hand sanitizer. So we have a backup to our backup.
Okay.
That's one thing with emergency management. We're taught to prepare and then have a backup plan to that.
Great.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
At this time, I'd like to ask the sheriff to come up for just a second. I've got a couple of quick questions. Just while we're finishing up on the COVID this morning, one question would be, have you received many calls with people that's getting together where there's too many and they've asked to be separated recently? I mean, is that part getting better? And the second question, I'll go ahead and give you the two. As Greg Scott's talked about opening the springs back up, I was wondering if there was a possibility that we could monitor that over this holiday weekend. And, you know, obviously we don't want to have confrontations with the sheriff's department and people, but to kind of monitor and see what's going on, and then if we need to make adjustments moving forward. You know, I want to hope that people's going to do the right thing, but I mean, it's our responsibility to try to help them understand what that is. So, anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, your second question first is, yes, I mean, that's what my plan, matter of fact, when I was listening to Greg about him opening the different springs and so forth, I was going to get with him afterwards and just make sure what hours were, and we'll definitely have, because, you know, fortunately, I guess one of the positive things with this COVID, I got help out as far as, you know, the school resource officers and some of at the courthouse, and I'm able to get out here in the community. So we'll definitely have people out there to monitor the springs and make sure that, you know, they're doing the social distancing. Plus, you know, make sure there's not a big group or crowd there. So we'll definitely take care of that part there, and I'll get with Greg and just make sure which springs are there. As far as the other one about the, calls about any large gatherings, we haven't. Matter of fact, they've been real, I'm getting a lot of calls like Mr. Darrell down there at the Branford Rodeo Arena. He's called us several times and he's wanting to put on some type of, it's not a rodeo, we just come over a training event. And so we've talked extensively about that and about how to do it and so forth. I know Columbia County put one on. He went over there and looked at it and kind of observed how they done it. So they're real adamant about doing the social distancing, limiting the number of people, and so forth. And then I know Mr. Hill there at the auction. He was concerned, and we got a game plan going on that there, to make sure that he's doing the guidelines and so forth. And he done an excellent job. He had I think he hired someone, the EMT, and had done the temperature check and everybody, gave them all the face mask and all, and which he has 10 acres out there to spread everything out on. So he done a real good job. So as far as us getting calls to, hey, Sheriff, we've got a gathering here, a gathering there, we're really not. But I do get a lot of calls from the people that own the businesses and different organizations saying, hey, Sheriff, I want to do this, and they just want to make sure they're doing it right. And then we get with them and we gave them a game plan and we check up on them, and they're all doing a real good job, and I'm proud that they're doing that.
That's great news on
Yeah.
what I've seen. I mean,
I attended a fundraiser Saturday, and everybody there, they had sanitizer, wore masks. I mean, it was a pretty good gathering. Maybe 20, 25, 30 people showed up. The sheriff even stopped by to warn them once or twice. But everybody's doing their part from what I've seen out there, from the places I've been.
And here again, I've stopped by all the different barbershops and nail salons, and just to check on them and all, and just to see and all, and I'm really surprised that they all are very adamant about the face masks, the hand sanitizers, the distancing and all. And everyone I visited, they're in compliance and are doing a very good job. And so far it's, knock on wood here, everybody is complying. They call ahead of time just to make sure that what they're doing is adequate. And so far so good on everything.
I appreciate your time this morning.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
At this time, I got something that's not on the agenda. I got a update I want to kind of bring to the board. It has to do with Klausner Lumber 1. There's been a bunch of speculation and talk over the last few months and things that's went on. I want to kind of bring a small update, short update to that. And then if the board's, Mr. Norris, if you'll come forward, the board has any questions or comments, but it's just things that me and Mr. Norris has been in a couple of meetings, and I want to discuss it real quick. The first thing I would say is, as I received a letter here, and I'll just read a paragraph of it. As you may know, Klausner Lumber 1 LLC has filed a voluntary petition for relief under Chapter 11 of the Bankruptcy Code in the United States Bankruptcy Court for the District of Delaware. In connection with the bankruptcy filing, the board of directors of the company has approved the engagement of Mr. Michael Freeman of Asgard Capital LLC to serve as Chief Restructuring Officer and an authorized officer of the company to represent and assist the company in carrying out its duties under the bankruptcy case. With that being said, Mr. Freeman extended an invitation to myself and Mr. Norris on Friday to go out and take a tour of the facility. It's the first time I'd ever been inside the facility, and I'll let Mr. Norris talk, but I left there feeling a lot better than riding by and seeing a big metal building. I mean, that place is it's impressive. It is. We had a lot of discussion when we was there. It's high tech. We have an asset here that, and even with Mr. Freeman's comment and some of the folks that have looked at the facility, it is or very close to being the #1 facility in the country as far as the capabilities of it. So at this time, I'll let Mr. Norris.
Good morning, and it's all good stuff. I mean, you know, obviously we've struggled through the last few years of working with Klausner. What I want you to all kind of think about now, as we have been instructed, is there is no more Klausner, okay? Just get it out of your minds, quit saying it. They don't exist as far as we're concerned. Mr. Freeman has met with several of us here, and we're working with him very closely. What I can tell you is, you know, when you hear the word bankruptcy, as everybody gets a little nervous, like, okay, well, this is going to be, you know, a 2-year deal that we're going to be struggling to find a new owner. The timeline is 90 days. And that clock started ticking the middle of last week. So we're in less than 90 days, we will have a new owner. We have multiple companies that are interested. Those companies will be visiting Suwannee County. I would hope that we would welcome them, that we would be positive in our thoughts and our comments about the asset that we do have there. As far as Commissioner Stapleton and I've been in that facility several times and seen it under power. I think it's very easy to sit back and to criticize something if you've never actually been out and been a part of it. That meal, as he explained to us, the reason that he has numerous people interested is because it is, like you said, if not the most advanced meals in North America. And it is a true asset to Suwannee County. We can partner with the new company that buys it, and we can make this a great, great day, a great year, a great future with a new company. And I'm excited about it. I know it's been a struggle, but the good Lord has sent us in this way, and this is how it was meant to work out. And I really feel like we're going to find that partner that we need, and we're going to be able to get that plant back up and running in the last quarter of the year. Once it sells, from some of the communications we have had, depending on who you talk to, they could be up and running in 6 weeks. It could be 8 weeks. It could be, a little longer than that. It depends on the company that buys it and what they decide to do. Now, it will go to the highest bidder. So we don't necessarily get to choose, but as the companies come in and they look at the facility, they do obviously want to meet with the county just so they know where we are and what kind of support we can provide to them. So
I'm just impressed by also that this company that's representing putting all this together for the bidding process, there's like 10 to 12 companies that are interested, that are very interesting. Now that'll probably get down to 3 to 5 when the time comes. But anytime you can reach out and get in front of 10 to 12 companies that are willing to spend $100 to $200 million, that's pretty good sized companies. So I'm grateful for what's going on. I feel positive, and that's the reason I asked Mr. Norris to come up this morning, was the negatives behind us. We're moving forward. We're progressing. Good things are going to happen there. We're going to get some people put back to work. We're going to get that place up and running, and it's going to happen sooner than later. And us as the county, we're going to do everything we can to expedite that and be a good partner with anyone that wants to come here and has a question or needs our assistance. We're going to be there for them, and I'm ready to make things happen. And the sun's going to come up, and it's going to be a bright, sunshiny day out there. And the people that was working there, my heart was broken when all that happened. But I want a solid company out there, that there's not layoffs every 6 months. People aren't in fear of their jobs. We got a company moving forward that's also going to expand over what they have. So I just want people to know that we're fighting for them. We've been here and we've struggled, and things are looking up.
they absolutely are, and we while we don't know everyone that's involved, we do know some that are involved. We know that some that are involved, as you and I were there and had the discussion, we're already looking at that expansion that was supposed to take place as part of the plan when they take over, if they were to get the bid. And we don't know who that would be, but there's just a lot of great opportunity there. And they were also
just so all of you know, very complimentary of the county. Mr. Freeman said he could not ask for anything else. He's been greeted with open arms and been very receptive to all the conversations that we have had. Mr. Harris and Mr. Pravat and of course you and then the officials here. I know the sheriff is working with them on some things, and so they're very complimentary. It's
very,
I'm excited.
It's very encouraging.
It
Is
is
what it is. That's the word. And just what you were saying, I'm excited that those companies want to be here. And we want them to be here. And some of those employees you mentioned, obviously that site is in my district, and I hear a lot about it on a daily basis. And not all folks have found other work.
Right.
And they're just excited to go back to work.
Well, right now, we know a lot of people are out of work. And if we can get this place back up and running in a few months, that's going to be a great impact on our community and the future.
Absolutely.
Because we're not, as the commissioner said, we're not talking about just, we're talking very legitimate companies that are interested, and they would not be making this kind of investment if they weren't 100% planning on firing this thing up and putting people to work. So just want to be sure the community knows that. And so the investment that the commissioners made, years ago, and as we move forward now, hopefully we can turn that into something even more positive, and for many, many years, have a great partner.
And I wanted to just take a couple minutes this morning, because a lot of times when you have things going on and you got people communicating, I want the public to know, but also I want the board to know. And the only way we can talk about things like this is in this setting. But I want y'all to understand that.
And I know moving forward, there's some things you guys and we can talk about and cannot talk about, but I do agree, the more information Mr. Norris or his board can put out to our community, I want to make sure we stay on top of that and do a good job of that.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'm happy to know also that if you feel confident, y'all went out and had these conversations and these invites of the potential companies that have interest in coming to Suwannee County. I have toured that facility, which is a state of the art. It's, the way the operation works, when trucks come in and how the process, how they do their mass production. So I'm happy, I'm elated that there is a possibility that someone will be utilizing that facility out there. I was kind of embarrassed at one time.
I can assure you, with the people that we're talking to, these are not, these are very legitimate companies. Many of them you know, some of them you don't know. We know that there's, as the commissioner said, 10 to 12 right now, everywhere from Canada, US of A, and overseas. So there's a lot of people around the world interested in bringing this place back to life.
Well, I too have received some calls, and it was like I told you.
Yeah.
And I just had to accept that. Now, that being said, that the clauses no more exist anymore, that someone be coming, maybe I can, I'll be proud.
Yeah, as far as we're concerned, Klausner doesn't exist. That was how we were directed to approach this. We deal strictly with Mr. Freeman, with Asgard Capital. Klausner does not get a vote on anything. It all goes through Mr. Freeman and Asgard Capital, and of course through our brain trust over here. But it's very positive, Commissioner, and I'm excited about it, putting those people back to work. They are already putting some feelers out to try to find out about the people that were out there and employed. And they actually, they have a couple of guys out there now that are doing some maintenance and going through the plant and starting the process of kind of dressing it up a little bit as this process takes place. But in less than 90 days, we will know the new owner.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Norris. Appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you, guys. Real quick on the census, just to let you know, it has tapered off just a little bit because of those paper applications, but we, over the last 3 weeks,
In our 7-county district, we have averaged the highest over the last 3 weeks on participation. We're up to 52% now, so we're 5% away from our 2010 participation rate, which was 57. We know it's going to get slower and slower. It's just the way it works. But with the help of the library staff, over the last 3 weeks, we have signed up approximately 2,800 new people. So, thank you
Thank you
guys.
so much. Yes, sir. Have a good day. Miss Betty, would you want to comment on the?
Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. I just have one thing that I would like to share with you this morning. It's not really about anything that we've been talking about, but I received word from the state this week. Didn't have a chance to put it on the agenda, but this has to do with construction of libraries. I think I shared with you that the Greenville Public Library was on that list, or Madison County rather. They're number 12 on the list. But I was happy to see that Branford, the renovation down there is on the list. There are 34 library projects on the list. And for those of you who are familiar with it, knows that it's a waiting game. But Branford, I was kind of surprised because usually you start at the bottom. There are 34 projects on the list, and Branford's number 17. So it's a waiting game, but it's good news, and I thought that I would share that with you this morning.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Miss Betty, while you're up here, got a question. We're in phase 1 of the reopening of the library.
Yes, about to go into phase 2, which would mean curbside pickup.
Okay, what's your timeline on getting into phase 3?
And phase 3 would have more to do with having people come in by appointment. We thought that a couple of weeks with curbside, unless you decide that it should be different, we would do that for a couple of weeks, and then depending on how things are, move into appointments. Now, I'll take your direction from that. We're prepared to, I would say that if you would like for us to start by appointment, we need at least one more week before that happens.
I'm getting a lot of requests from our homeschool community for some of their students to start utilizing the library. I don't know the rest of the board, but I would like for you to move forward with at least letting some of these homeschools students and any other students start scheduling appointments as soon as we can.
Okay.
I don't know y'all's thought on
I
that,
don't have a
but
problem with that. I'm getting a lot of the same requests.
Okay. Your
Comment, Commissioner Ridgeway?
No, I was going to say, I don't have a problem with that.
okay. So we do have a, I'm sorry.
I'm fine with what you fellows are saying. I mean, Mr. Harris, you want to have a discussion with Miss Betty?
If you want to do that, go ahead. We're going to take a very methodical approach, try to watch and gauge what's going on with this virus in the community.
Yeah.
I think the curbside was a very good approach to trying to accommodate even homeschool people. But if we need to let them inside the building, I guess we can do that. The curbside is a very disciplined, very methodical approach to getting materials to the people and allowing them to bring materials back to the drop box. But if you want to move it up quicker than that and put them in the building, we can do that too. That's up to the board. That isn't the approach that we were going to take.
well, within our plans, there's anyone under 16 has to be accompanied by an adult. So that kind of takes away the daycare aspect of it. And I went through your plan pretty extensively the other day, and I agreed with all of it. I was just wanting us to get to the phase 3 a little sooner rather than later, especially with a lot of other things in the state coming up and now. The gyms, restaurants going to 50%. Other counties, I believe Columbia County opened their library at 25%. I'm getting a lot of requests from from different people. And it's primarily been homeschool families.
Okay. And
Miss
just,
Betty,
Miss Betty, just one second.
I wouldn't go against anything, the board that we're about to approve, but how do you and your staff feel about the possibility of speeding the process up? How would y'all feel it?
the staff that is there now, they feel very comfortable with it. They're anxious, and they get a lot of phone calls because, we do have phone service still at the library. And I just want to let you know that we do have a plan we've put a lot of thought into it. I've talked with Mr. Harris, and he's also looked at the plan, and this would be by appointment. So there is a sense of control with regards to how we implement the service. I think that it would be in a very safe manner. We have received a lot of our signage that we'll be working on putting in place this week. So I think that it would be good for us to try it now. And with the understanding that, because we have unknowns right now, that if we have to adjust, then we adjust.
Would the board consider, if we was looking at dates, would you consider the 1st of June? It would give us 10, 12 more days, almost 2 weeks to kind of.
If they're comfortable.
I'm just saying, instead of saying tomorrow,
Well, she said she needed, she said she was gonna need at least a week.
Yeah.
A week, and I think that, I'm sorry.
I
the
understand
homeschool-
some people's want some dates or want an idea. I don't want to rush into anything either. I understand Commissioner Gamble's concerns. I understand yours. I want to be smart as we can about.
I think considering we have a holiday coming up, and that'll be, a non-work day as well for most people, June 1st is a good number for me.
Yeah, I'm fine with June 1st, so they should have given me a date to start telling people.
And even with that, we're just saying that it's just by appointment.
Right.
And you have to follow the guidelines that she's laid out.
And at least the phone calls I've been getting, an appointment will take care of the needs that they have. They're fine, they'll be fine with that.
Okay. So your wish? Your desire?
June 1st.
June 1st.
Mr.
Okay.
Harris, would you be that?
It'll be June 1st.
Ms. Betty, are you getting those products back in? I know you said they were.
We are.
Okay.
I was able to get what I needed in terms of signage for the outside. That's like the signage that you see around town from Mr. Harris, and we'll be placing those out this week for our curbside to continue. And then we've been also getting library-related signage with regards to the virus from our vendors. They've started to come in now. They had a backlog, but we're beginning to get our supplies. So we can do that. The homeschoolers are probably looking at this because this is coming to a part of their end of school year, so to speak. So they're probably having a little bit different issues than what the normal issues are with regards to public schools. So
If you're moving forward, you're just doing this appointment only, is that just bringing a few of the employees back as you move forward? Or how will that work?
right now, the last, and you can let me know if you want this to be different, but the last governor update said that public libraries and museums could open up to 50%, and I know that we're less than that, but what I've tried to do is stay at a level where we've been having the employees return along the lines of that requirement. So we do have enough staff at this point to do our curbside. I would need to call a few more back in when we get into phase 3, which would be
I also would,
with this discussion, I don't want to force any of those folks that's worked through this process to try to
And
clear
I-
themselves from the
right.
virus. And if they have concerns, I don't want those folks to feel like they're pushed back into something if it,
They don't feel.
I agree.
right. I want to look at all that.
Sure.
And maybe over this next week, you should have some conversation and see what this schedule's feeling like, and next week we could revisit it and see if that is, you know what I'm saying, seeing how she's feeling on that timeline, and if it needs to be adjusted a little bit, if you need a little more time, I want to be careful, that's all. I want to be respectful to the public, as Commissioner Gamble and Commissioner Hale said, and I also want to be respectful to the employees that work there. And I want everyone to be safe. I don't
And- Right, and we are encouraging, and we can move from encouragement to a necessary wearing a mask while in the building. A lot of libraries are doing that now. As far as the staff is concerned, I just want to let you know that I'm getting calls from people who are interested in coming back to work. And I agree with you, for someone who is not ready for it, I don't know when you will make the decision that you have a timeline, because everything's got a timeline.
Right.
You don't stay on it forever. But at this point, I do agree that it should be by those that are comfortable with coming back or want to come back right now.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Commissioner Gamble?
Oh, I was just going to ask you, phase 2, are you waiting to June 1st on that, or are you going to do that one as?
We can do phase 2 tomorrow if you decide that because that's not someone coming in the building.
Right. I'm ready
That,
for
and
that.
our process for that has been fine-tuned so that is still also by appointment, because what they do have to do is give us a call.
Yeah.
And give us their requests. And at that point, we do sort of a little reference interview and then let them know when they ought to show up for the items. We do the timing such that if someone comes, say, at 3 o'clock, the next person is not due to arrive until about 3:30 or so.
Yeah, I think I read something, and it was a minimum of 15 minutes or something between, I can't remember.
Right.
But the curbside was successful when we were doing it, and it's something that I thought they could easily re-implement as soon as possible.
Right. There will be a little difference in the curbside this time, in that the last time activities were put out, this time the activities this was children.
Right.
The activities will not be put out in the open. They'll be placed in a bag that someone is called in to make a request for. So you won't have people out going through material.
Thank you so much, Ms. Betty. We
Are
appreciate
y'all
your
fine with that, with her going ahead and implementing phase 2?
I'm good with it.
I'm good with it. I'd like to know what phase, could you sent out an email on the phases of reopening, or do we have a list of everything that's involved in each phase?
We can get you a copy of the whole written document.
Phase 1 was getting the back of the books and everything, the items they had out. Phase 2 was curbside. Phase 3 was by appointment up to 25% occupancy.
I'd just like to have a little bit more of a complete list as to what
I can-
each phase looks like.
Yeah. I can just resend it to everybody if
Yeah.
that's.
Thank you.
That's
Thank
okay.
you, Ms. Betty.
Thank you, Ms.
Okay.
Betty.
Thank you.
You have a good day.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, one quick question in regards to both library services and the employees in census. Are we to the point where we've accomplished everything that we're going to be able to accomplish with the callers on the census, or are we still in need of them in their capacities?
With that being said, it's definitely been effective because I've had multiple conversations
I got a call.
where our employees, have been contacted. So, I mean, it's definitely working. I just commend all those employees and the efforts of our board and you guys for doing this.
Right, it has worked. We know that the paper applications, the second round were mailed out, so everybody received a bump. But where we know there was a difference was where out of the 7 counties, we were to average 3 to 4 every day on the percentage. We went to number 1 over a 3-week period, almost every single day. Now, they didn't necessarily sign the people up or get on the phone with them, but the timing was just right, that they were receiving those paper applications, so they were encouraging them to do it. Now, saying that, they pretty much have worked their way through over 10,000 calls through the phone book. What we have started now, and of course, we're good with any time Ms. Betty and the library staff needs to do what they do. This was just a thank you for helping us, and we don't want to interfere whatsoever. They documented people that they missed. And so what we're doing now is we've just started going back through to try as a second phase to catch people that we missed, and then going out into the new opening businesses. So we're good. They have definitely been a help, and I really think that if it hadn't been without those phone calls, instead of 2,800 people signed over the last 3 weeks, it might have been 1,400. So
What's our percentage now?
52. We're at 52. In 2010, we were at 57 on self-reporting. I will give you a little update on that. I don't want to get too far out there, but there is another piece of this that's called, there's certain areas in communities that don't have addresses. And I'm going to use Dowling Park as an example. It's called updated leave. When you're in Dowling Park, the apartments out there, all of those people have P.O. boxes in those apartments by design. Okay, the census, you will not receive if you don't have that physical address. So throughout each and every county, they've got these different sectors that they've identified that have not received their census information. So last week on Friday, they actually went out to hand out to these people that they have missed a real census form. That is the only way you will get one now. There won't be another mailing. What we had to do is we had to work with Dowling Park and their officials because they didn't want necessarily outsiders, going into those apartment buildings. So we were able to get approval from the Census Bureau to allow them to basically monitor that and let the staff there go through those apartments and to put those on door hangers. The individual people that were in their own dwellings, the Census Bureau took care of that. We have some of that going on throughout the county. Branford, the Boys Ranch area, Laurelville, like all the places that are down are the places that this is going on. So it's really out there and it's working, but we know there's going to be some up and downs, and it's going to be really hard now to get these final few points to get to 57, but we'll get there. And ultimately 70, and from my last report, it's going to be a couple of months before they actually send anybody out and start knocking on doors. So,
when you talk about self-report, have they already done the self-reporting of the prisons, the assisted livings?
Man, that was my little. I was holding back on that. No, that will not be counted until that final number. That will go into a self-reporting number. The group quarters, which will be our prison, our nursing homes, and all that, was supposed to happen in March, but that got pushed back, got delayed. There has been contact, and I have had personal conversations with the nursing homes and the prison, as well as the people that will be counting that. So that will not go into our self-response rate. That'll come in on the tail end of this. After it's over, then they'll take that percentage and add to it.
Is there a plan? You mentioned some of those low participation areas. I know at one of the other meetings we talked about maybe having a plan to go out in that area and capture that. If you work on. I hear what you're doing in Dowling Park. I mean, is that something?
Yeah, we, like for instance, up around the Boys Ranch area, and I'm just using that as but it's kind of that area up there. We thought that if any candidates were running for office in those areas, they could, while they were out campaigning, they could mention how important the census is.
Well, I'm trying to get on a cell phone tower now, so
Yeah. So, we're trying to target those areas, but again, we're not out knocking on doors.
Right.
And so it just so happens, like in Dowling Park, they have a vehicle, because they're a little community, to kind of help themselves. We don't really have a lot of vehicles in some of these other areas.
We were down in Branford again last week at Town Hall down there, talking to those people. We've had conversations with Suwannee American Cement down there. Fortunately, a lot of them are working from home now because there were some issues there with the virus. So, but yeah, we're trying our best, and we've contacted the sheriff's ranches out there to try to help get us in out there.
Sure.
But we're open to anything. So. Well,
I knew at one time you said that the census had plans to go door to door, and obviously that's been delayed. I just didn't know if they had any plans as we're starting to get.
They will go door to door tentatively. They told us it's going to be probably about 2 months, so it may be right now pushed back to like August, whereas initially it was going to be basically right now.
Correct. Okay.
So, but as long as we don't see this thing go the other way, it does look like they're going to send some enumerators out as we get to the end of the summer.
I guess my question though was that self-reporting number from 10 years ago, did that include the group facilities or does it not?
It does not.
Okay.
That is in that 13%. That is the enumerator number. So
I was just trying to figure out if that's where we're off at or if we're actually off.
If that's our 5% to get us there. No, it's not. That 5% is above our self-reporting number.
Okay.
And I say 5%, that's not exactly right.
I understand.
Thank you, Mr. Norris. We appreciate that.
Thanks, sir.
At this time, we'll open the floor to public comments. If anyone's wishing to speak, if you would please make your way to the podium. Seeing that I have no one, we will move ahead to Mr. Harris. Do you have any closing comments? No, sir. Mr. Pravat, I didn't mean to skip you.
I'm fine, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Richardson, closing comments.
I just want to take a minute to thank the Department of Health for what they're doing, and don't want to call into question any of the work that they're doing with the numbers. The numbers that we receive are numbers that probably go well above the heads of even the state, and how they enumerate all the COVID stuff. I just want to make sure that the public understands that at least in our area, we're looking out for you guys. We're looking out for the public, and we want to make sure that our public is safe. What Washington does is up to Washington, and what Tallahassee does is up to Tallahassee. What we do in Suwannee County is about people. So I just want to make sure you guys understand, even though I have not a lot of confidence in some of the higher up groups, I have a lot of confidence in our local folks, and I want the public to know that. That's all.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, I apologize. There's one thing I wanted to mention to you. In fact, Mrs. Lawrence mentioned that we had gotten the signage out there as well on the COVID-19 and the distancing. We've had a lot of requests from businesses, and I anticipate more of that as more businesses open for those same signs, and we've been providing those. In fact, we were providing those signs early on for the retailers that were already listed as essential businesses. So we have those at the office. I think we're just about out, but we've got another order of those coming in, and that'll be available to businesses that want to try to encourage that social distancing as well. I just want to mention that.
Thank you. Commissioner Fleming, closing comments.
Mr. Chairman, I don't have anything.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Gamble.
I don't have any.
Commissioner Hale.
I don't have any.
I don't have much today. I just appreciate everybody. I appreciate the efforts that the county puts into trying to do a good job for the citizens of this county. Closing quote for today, it'll be in relation to Memorial Day. We just have a long weekend coming up, and I'd like to see all families be close and be able to spend time together and still be safe with the virus. But this one goes, as we express our gratitude, we must never forget that the highest appreciation is not to utter the words, but to live by them. by John F. Kennedy. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Gamble, second by Commissioner Hale. All in favor, say aye. Aye.